One of my best friends who's on the same wrestling team as I am, I won't say his name, but if he's watching, he knows who he is. You gotta get bigger muscles, bro. You work out too much to be as small as you are. He goes to every single one of the wrestling practices at 6 days a week, and then he goes to club after all of those practices. And then in the off season, he goes to club all the time. And outside of club, he lifts. I don't know if he runs, but he climbs rope at the clubs a ton. This same guy told me that he knows another guy who can teach me how to get down to 7% body fat healthily, which nobody can do. My whole point is, this guy is really, really into wrestling. He plays Clash Royale, and he wrestles. And that's all he does with his entire life. And he, like plenty of other wrestlers, is almost certainly, I think, guilty of overtraining. And this isn't a good thing, even though overtraining can be a good thing. Let me explain. This friend of mine is chronically overtraining. And chronically overtraining, I'm bringing up a example of chronic overtraining because I know for a fact that a bajillion people who are watching this video are going to be like keyboard warrioring in the comment section. What? You're telling us to chronically overtrain? That's bad for health and lowers testosterone, blah, 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 blah. I hate living in this modern day and age where you can't say anything online without people being like, what? You told us to drink water? You're telling us to drown ourselves? I can completely acknowledge that what this friend is doing, not a good idea. Overtraining is not a good habit. Okay, now that we have that out of the way for all of the tapioca-brained retards out there, let's get to the actual point of this video, which is that very intermittent bursts of serious overtraining with proper rest and properly managed can be something that you might want to work into your training, not for any kind of real physical benefit. There is super compensation, but generally avoiding overtraining is best for physical adaptation. Although if you overtrain one time and then you rest afterward, it's basically the same. But for what it does to you mentally, let me explain. I am absolutely not unique as an athlete, and especially not as a wrestler, for having gone through this, but I can definitely remember certain practices that I've gone through that have left me absolutely wrecked. My very first middle school wrestling practice, and my very first high school wrestling practice, and a specific practice in the off-season, just this past year, which that's just what comes off the top of my head, which were just absolutely crazy, completely wrung me out and left me destroyed. For my very first high school wrestling practice, every time I sat down after that for a few days, thank God I had a few rest days afterward. I would have died if I didn't. I sat down, I was like an old man or something. And then there was that other time in the off season where I ran so hard that I nearly puked, and then I got sick for 2 straight weeks afterward. Were these sessions extremely useful in driving physical adaptations? Doubtful. However, if you train really, really hard for one session, and then instead of, going into hard training the next day, like you might normally do, like I would normally do, then you just give yourself some serious rest or active recovery in that time, then the super compensation from that one session, even though you're missing the training afterward, is not the most optimal way to make physical adaptations in your training, but you will basically end up in the same spot. But the real utility of these things that I've went through, and the real reason why they're such important experiences for me, is that my definition of what is something that really, really sucks is completely different. When I'm going through a hard practice, I can think, okay, this is a hard practice. This kind of sucks. I don't really like how this feels, but this is not that practice or that practice. Thank God it's not that practice. Because it's not any of those really, really bad things, I know that however bad it is, it could be worse, and I think you can basically do the same thing yourself. I don't know how well it works for it to be voluntary, because all the times that I've done this, it's been involuntary. I probably wouldn't have been tough enough to go all the way through with any of these kinds of workouts if it was, a voluntarily done thing. So you may need to get somebody to force you to do it. Having a wrestling coach goes a very long way, trust me, I know. But going through something that's just crazy hard, way too hard for you to sustain, you cannot make this a regular habit. It needs to be, very widely interspersed. But going through these kinds of just ridiculously awful workouts will basically inoculate you against everything else. Generally, to make you seriously tougher, working out needs to be a very consistent habit. But when you keep that very consistent habit, but you also have those memories of having gone through something that's way worse than whatever you do normally, getting yourself to do what you do normally will never be a mental battle, because it is so far from the worst thing you've gone through. I cannot stress this enough to close out this video. The day after you do anything crazy like this, and you should be doing it responsibly as well, please have somebody monitoring you, because if I tell you to do it without somebody monitoring you, somebody's gonna get killed and it's gonna be my fault legally somehow. The day afterward, just rest. Or better yet, do light active recovery, because doing a really hard thing and then doing, your regular workout the next day as if it just had been a normal day before may make you seem really tough. Then you'll be puking, then you'll get sick, then you'll go through all the stupid crap that I did that took me out of training, and you'll look just as stupid as I did. Don't do it.